Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Now, I remember when I was younger, I would sometimes pick up a book at our local Scholastic Book Fair, the Guinness Book of World Records, and I would flip through and I would look at all of these different feats that were accomplished. Now, not everything appears in the Guinness Book of World Records. There are a lot of different ways that records are recorded and founded and stated. And today's guest has been a part of being involved in multiple world record credits and as an event producer, and has leveraged his skill now into the real estate syndication space along with his partners at Wild Oak Capital. They primarily focus on the value add space. They have a goal of helping busy professionals, families realize financial and time freedom that comes through investing in real estate. So welcome, Ben. Appreciate you joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great.
Now, when you got started, you worked in a different area. You weren't necessarily involved in real estate until more
Mhm.
recently, but you were involved in a lot of different roles that involved logistics. Now, I've some familiarity with the term, but I'm assuming that not all of our guests would understand it just from that term alone. So tell me
Sure.
a little bit about what that means and maybe some of the different ways that you were involved in different aspects of logistics and logistics management.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, logistics is a broad term, right? So, like
Yep.
logistics, as far as shipping is concerned, has one connotation. I mean, broadly speaking, logistics and planning and actually building out a plan, how things
Okay.
work together, I think, is really what you and I started talking about. It's based around. So, I come from, to take it all the way back. I come from action sports production and event production
Yeah.
primarily for the last
Okay.
15 plus years.
Yep.
So what we got really good at was working in a certain space and building out a plan. And it's very similar to multifamily. It's very similar to a lot of the different locations. But for us, we build the best possible plan and then we react to what comes at us, right?
Yeah.
Like based on that. And hey, you have to be flexible. You have to have the ability to be a little nimble because you never really know all of the things that are going to happen. As a matter of
Right.
fact, I keep all of my notebooks from all of my events, and we still produce locally. We still do some fun
Yep.
stuff here and there, but I always keep all my notebooks because it shows us where we thought we were gonna be when we started and where we ended up. And
Okay.
it's never the same. And I think that's the biggest
Sure.
thing that when we talk to people, when we're teaching people about the multifamily or real estate space,
Hmm.
there's we seem to run into this idea that okay, you make a plan and then you execute the plan and the plan always goes to plan. Or if it's
Yeah.
really well, it does
Yep.
really well and it goes exactly to plan.
Yep.
And in my experience, nothing ever goes to plan. And I think that's like where you start. It's like, hey,
Sure.
this is where we build it. And the ability to be a little nimble, the ability to really understand, hey, this is the ebbs and flows and build in some space. So that to me, that's the logistics part, right? Like that's
Yep.
the nitty gritty. Like you build a plan, here's where everything goes. And it's awesome when it goes to plan. But
Yeah.
sometimes some of the best things come out of something that you didn't even expect or something that you weren't planning on. And then as you react, it actually can sometimes become better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Now, involved in action sports, I just want to take
Yeah.
that back again. Explain a little bit further what that means, because I think of action sports like maybe boxing, race cars. Talk a little bit about
Sure.
what that means more specifically in your world and what you were involved in.
Yeah. Well, you got it pretty close with race cars. I've never been involved in boxing. We did some stuff with UFC for a little while.
Okay.
But no, a lot of it was based around, you think about, the grand scheme of like X Games or Nitro Circus or, Red Bull. Red Bull is a big
Yep.
client of ours for a long time. So a lot of it's like, skate, surf, snow, um, adrenaline sports is another term for it for a lot of times. And then we found ourselves consistently getting into a place where somebody had a crazy idea or somebody had something that was really difficult to pull off. And,
Yeah.
we were one of a few folks that could go stand in and say, yeah, we can take that on. We can build this, whether it be, jumping somebody from near space or racing race cars around Brooklyn or, jumping 3 different rally cars over each other at the
Okay.
same time. Like,
Yep.
motorcycles, that's kind of where we got into it. We really got into racing through a friend of mine had an idea to take off-road trucks, so basically like a short
Uh-huh.
course version of a Baja truck,
Right.
and put them on snow. And so we raced
Okay.
them on snow in Maine, and that kind of got us into,
All right.
well, if we can do this, now maybe we reach into this. So action sports to me is a pretty broad term, and I think to a lot of people
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
But again, it's just a baseline for we got into a space where we got really good. We found a niche, but we were really good at working with people. It's very similar. It's very
Yeah.
similar to, like I said, multifamily and everything else, in the
Right.
sense that the
Yep.
community involved, the
Yep.
people that you work with, the questions you ask, and a lot of time it's you're asking the municipality, or you're asking a local government, or you're asking a community to help you build something, and they may not think it's a great idea to start. So you have to figure out, like, hey, why is this the best thing for everybody involved? And you
Sure.
move on from there. So just kind of
Yeah.
picking those skill sets up and putting them down.
Yeah. Now, in thinking of multifamily, in what we said in this stated bio or introduction for you, you're working with people who are passively investing in real estate because they are busy or they're not going to be wanting to do the work to look for the deal and to manage the deal. So, when it comes to, or how does that relate to action sports events? Did you find that there were investors in these type of events too, or was that
Yeah.
more of a different type of funding that was
Yeah, I mean,
involved?
sometimes it's privately funded, or you have a
Okay.
company that's very interested, and you're selling a message. So I think, to
Yep.
me, what was really interesting, and why I like the space and getting out of the space,
Yeah.
is it's mostly about helping people where they are, is the best way to
Uh,
describe it. So
okay.
for me, we were on the road a lot, and I
Yep.
have a young family now, and I have kids, and I was just gone a lot, and I started to realize, and my younger brother was investing in some real estate, some small real estate locally, and he
Yep.
was really vocal with me about, hey, I think we should really look into syndicating. I think our skill sets overlap. And so for me, it's
Mhm.
about helping and meeting people where they are. So there are some people that are like, hey, I want to get out of the rat race, or I'm working way too much and I want to passively invest and create multiple streams of income. There's
Yeah.
also a significant volume of people that love what they were doing. Like, I loved what I was doing. I really enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed the projects.
Sure.
And there's some people
Right.
that don't necessarily have families, or don't even want to get exit out of that yet. But I can say, hey, looking down the line, maybe you're a freelancer, maybe you own your own company, maybe you own,
Yep.
X, Y, and Z, and maybe you haven't put enough away for retirement, or any of those things. I can meet you where you are and
Yep.
help you in such a way that, like, hey, you can keep going. If you invest with us, we'll handle, the heavy lift. You can continue doing exactly what you love doing, and we'll help you start building more on the back end. So I think there's a lot there
Sure.
so it's less about the action sports content. I think, as far as the investor is concerned,
Hmm.
as it relates, I think it's just me relating to people, and really understanding what it feels like to either want to make a shift out of what you're doing and to get into something that can really help build passive streams, or
Yeah.
B, hey, you don't have to leave what you're doing. Like, we'll help you. We'll help you build.
Yeah. And I imagine with the action sports and the logistics planning for events, those were more event to event to event, whereas investing in real estate is a consideration of a more longer term investment where you are property to property to property, but you're retaining ownership, or you're retaining ownership for a period of time and then selling that as it appreciates in value. So there's this
Sure.
value added over a period of time, that's a return on the investment of time and capital, as opposed to the event that was planned. It gained publicity, it gained some notoriety and awareness, and depending on what it was for, it had its purpose, but it was more singular. And there, if it's for publicity, of course, I'm sure there's a return on that investment and gaining some more awareness and notoriety.
Totally.
But with the real estate, I would think that more of a longer term perspective with that is that additional gain on capital and appreciation in value over time.
Certainly.
But is my thinking correct on this?
Yeah, I mean, they're not exactly the same. You're absolutely
Right.
right, but it's a lot of the same beast. It's just stretched
Okay.
out. So a
Yep.
lot of people will see an event. For example, I'll take it to, we produced a race car event in
Yep.
Brooklyn,
Okay.
and people show up, and you advertise for 6 months, 4 months, whatever that timeline is. People show up. You have 2 days of racing, and they go home, and a lot of people assume that a lot of that happened during the same timeline. A lot
Yeah.
of time, we've been planning this for a year or
Okay.
more,
Yep.
and
Right.
really
Right.
digging in, and, like, we
Yeah.
started out, and that's why I say the start of the notebook is like, we think this is what it's going to be, right?
Yep.
So that, to me, is, and really dealing with asset management, there's a lot of people that that are really excited, and rightly so. When you close, you're like, we're excited, we got this under contract, you've got all these things, but
Yeah.
that's really just the start, right? Like that's the start
Yeah.
of the investment. That's where the work
You're
starts.
right.
So to me,
Right.
that's the start of the notebook. Like we think this is our business plan, this is where we start. And so yes, over the course of the 3 to 5 to 7, depending on what your hold time frame is, and the reality of your hold realistically,
Yep.
because things change. That to me is when you get to, so the sales event, the exit is like, that's race day, right? So
Yeah.
everything that comes before it, the timeline is stretched out, but it's still a very
Sure.
similar mentality in the sense
Yeah.
that we want to build our plan. We want to put the right people in the room. We want to ask the right questions. And when things go wrong, we want to pivot and make sure that we're taking care of what that is, so that we have to be adjustable to the plan, but the end goal is the same, right? Race day is still coming. The exit is still
Yeah.
coming. So that's where the mentality is very similar to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen people come into different investments or different business opportunities without much of a plan. And sometimes that can work, and it can work for a period of time. But with what you're describing, both with the event and large events that you were working out the logistics over a longer period of time, and with the asset management and working with properties, you just can't come in half cocked and have half of a plan and think that's going to work. It sounds like that what you're describing is you have to have that detail. You have to have that thoughtful process that you're following, whether it's on the front end when you're pursuing the properties, once you have acquired it, and then when you're carrying it out through the asset management to be able
Right.
to succeed and get to that race day event, like you said.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being able to manage and adjust as things do change, and the end is not necessarily what you had thought it was at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the same in the sense that a lot of this is based around, an event is very similar. Like the
Yep.
components of running a large event. And to take a step back, you're absolutely right. There are people show up both in the event space and in the investing space, just like, I think I can do this.
Uh-huh.
And, everybody starts somewhere, right? Like I've
Yep.
personally made mistakes. We've had to do some
Yeah.
certain things. And I think a lot of times when you look yourself in the mirror, like what can we learn from? We're learning every single day. But the
Right.
thing is that I think in this space and in large events, and like at a certain level, when you get to elite level, like, and you're getting to a level with you're dealing with other people's money and it's regulated by
Yep.
SEC, like you need to be prepared. But it's similar in the sense that at least the recipe is the same, right? Like you're making
Yeah.
cookies for the most
Yep.
part, right? Like
Yep.
if you're in an asset class, like if you're going to multifamily value add BC class in the Southeast, the recipe is somewhat the same, depending. And if you're making peanut butter cookies or chocolate chip, like you obviously need to get down into the nitty
Yeah.
gritty. But for the most part, the tools that you need, the people that you need. So that's where like people who are getting really good at it and can replicate it, that's
Yeah.
how they're doing it, is that you've built the team, you've built the systems, you've built the availability to go in and say, I think we can do this. We need to tweak these 4 things because of this market, or we need to tweak these 4 things because of this risk in this area, or now we need to adjust because the interest rate market is completely different. Like all of those things, the
Yeah.
raise,
Yep.
and having the ability to say, cool, the last one we did, we exited at 3. This
Yep.
one we're planning on 3, but we may have to hold the 5. We may have to hold the 7. Are we prepared for that? Like there's a lot of those tweaks, but for the most part, that recipe is the same. And if you find people that have honed their craft well enough, they can get into the choppy water and figure out the way through because they've been there before in that
Yeah.
aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that comparison to following a recipe, making cookies, something like that, because that first time you do something, you're probably not going to do it as well as that fifth, sixth, seventh,
Right.
10th, 20th time. And with that additional experience over time, your improvement on that process continues to accelerate. So you're
Mhm.
able to achieve a better result in the end with the work that you've been given. So,
And you
what?
choose your ingredients, you choose your people. Like that's the
Yeah,
thing. And really
yeah,
it's similar in this space and in new events that I was very lucky, but as we got really good at what we are doing, we got to pick the very best people to work with us,
yeah,
right? So
yep,
same thing here, like you pick the people you're working with, you pick the ingredients, and they may come in and out. Like this is a very specific thing. We need cost segregation. I'm going to call Yona, right? Pick him off the wall, like
uh-huh,
that kind of thing. So
yep,
being able to work with some people and really gaining in this atmosphere and working with people in this network, it's all about the people, man. Like
yeah.
if you have the best people around you, then you're going to succeed.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk about those ingredients now, and also kind of when you got started in real estate. How many years ago was that? And kind of where are things now for you? How are things
Yeah.
going? And your process and working out the experience over time.
Yeah. So I personally got into it just around and previous to the pandemic, but not much
Yeah.
before. Like I said,
Yep.
personal
Yep.
investing, my brother and I had got a couple of quads. We did the kind of classic
Yeah.
entry. He had a couple single family. Um, and fortunately, and the pandemic really had a mind shift for me as well,
Sure.
because, being in
Yeah.
special events at the time, my entire career is based around gathering people, and suddenly we can't gather
Yeah.
anyone,
Right.
right? Like it just
Yep.
completely disappeared overnight. I was fortunate in the sense that we were able to pivot a little bit and do some things, like did some drive-ins and some, like all of the things that everybody saw
Yeah.
during the time to keep people active. Um,
Right.
but it really made us take a hard look at what we were doing as a family, and myself
Yep.
personally. From that point, then we started looking, and that's when, again, credit goes to my younger brother. He's a very smart gentleman, and he was looking at
Yep.
this space. He's an engineer by trade. He sees numbers that faster and quicker than I ever can. He's like,
Okay.
looking at this, and this makes a bunch of sense for us, and our skill sets really align to what this looks like. So through that, my last race was the summer after the pandemic.
Okay.
We
Yep.
just decided to make a full go of it. So we've been going a couple of years.
Okay.
We've got a bunch of properties that we have not under contract, but under our portfolio, and we're managing them. We
Yeah.
are actively looking to build and to grow. And I think the next couple of years, especially, like we see turmoil, but we also see a big
Yeah.
opportunity for what's coming down the line. And a lot of it has to do with ingredients. Like Eric, he started Wild Oak Capital on his own, and he asked me to be a part of it along with two other guys.
Yep.
So we have four of us total, and some really, really smart guys and people that challenge each other. And I think that's the
Sure.
best way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Bringing people with complementary mindsets and skill sets allow you to excel in any business, any opportunity that you're working through. And I think this is definitely one of those solid examples when you can bring people together for a larger project like a multifamily syndication, which for those that don't understand that term, could you just clarify that just to make sure that we have an
Sure.
understanding?
Yeah. So essentially, what we're doing is pooling people's money together, people's capital to buy a
Hmm.
larger asset. So,
Yep.
us as Wild Oak Capital, for example, we will go out and find an apartment complex and say,
Okay.
hey, we found the asset. We have sourced the debt. So, we'll go through the process of sourcing the debt, what that looks like, figure out what the business plan will look like. For us, it's very often a value add. So, we'll find an
Hmm.
asset that's underperforming or that's undermanaged, and we will go make that deal and then go out to individual investors and say, hey, if you would like to be a part of this deal, we're pooling people's money together. You become a part of the limited partnership, which essentially means that for the most part, you're shielded from most of the high end things. You're not going to be in the day to day. We will handle all the
Yep.
management, but you receive a piece of that ownership for your investment. So, a lot of the things that come along with the benefit of owning a larger asset, so tax benefits, a
Hmm.
lot of the pieces, cash flow in a lot of cases, depending on the deal, but each deal is
Yep.
unique. Um,
Yep.
gives you some of these benefits, and it has nothing to do with your day to day. You, for the most part, you will receive a monthly update. You'll see, depending on deals, quarterly distributions, and essentially,
Yep.
if it's done well, it's kind of a set it and forget it kind of
Yeah.
activity. And a lot of people, it's really interesting because that's an entry point for a lot of different folks. Like some people who want to get into syndication, like I'm going to start here and I'm going to learn. A lot of people are like, I have no interest in it. I just want to put money and
Right.
walk away, or I'm so
Yep.
busy that
Yep.
I'm really interested in my career. Here's a little bit, grow this for a while, and then let's keep having conversations. So
Yeah.
that's syndication for me in a nutshell.
Yeah. I like the diversification that it allows. And honestly, myself, I didn't even know about syndications until 2022. So, some point last year was the first time I'd even heard the term. So, thank you for clarifying that because I'm certain there are a lot of people that still aren't familiar with it, or even that there is an opportunity that exists where they can come together with others and put money together into a larger asset acquisition like an apartment complex.
Yeah, I mean, that is our number one mission, man. And personally, it's my number one mission. The more that I get into
Yeah.
this and the more that I learn about it, the more I realize that people either haven't heard about it or there's a big misunderstanding about what it is and how, honestly, how powerful it can be.
Yeah.
And we can get deep into this, but there's availability and ways to get into. We have several investors with
Hmm.
us that have invested through an SDIRA or a self-directed IRA,
Okay.
utilizing some funds that people say, I don't have tons of savings or I don't want to tap into my savings. meetings. Like, well, a lot of people are pretty unimpressed with how their portfolios have been performing in the last couple of years
Sure.
based on the stock
Right.
market.
Yep.
So just having conversations, and again, like we just want to meet people where they are. If you want to learn
Yep.
to invest, we'll help you. If you want to just passively invest, we'll help you. If you're at ground zero and you just want to like figure it out, cool. We've got modules. Like we'll help you learn as much as we can. So
Yep.
my biggest push, and thank you for having me here, is just to let people know like this is available to you. Like that, please
Absolutely.
learn. If not with us, with somebody else, but learn what this is because it's really powerful.
So if anyone does want to learn more and connect with you, and like you said, you have also some modules, you have ways that you can help people to learn or just find out about potentially being an investor at some point in time.
Sure.
What is the best way for someone to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. And
Okay.
actually, I think this is broadcasting on my channel on LinkedIn as well as yours. Or you can also just reach to me at Ben@Wild Oak Capital, and we'll get you
Okay.
set up. Yeah, we offer
Okay.
training modules from multifamily investing all the way down to quads. We offer
Yeah.
coaching. We're starting an event series, so very shortly we've got one in 2 weeks, but we're starting a larger event series to teach people to come together and actually grow together. So bringing people that have
Yeah.
been in the space a long time all the way down to beginners, and really concentrate on the interaction between those people, all the way up to adventure based. And in 24 we're launching an adventure based learning system where you can go out,
Okay.
surf, ski, snow, and then we'll spend a
Nice.
bunch of time digging into stuff. So we'll meet people, we'll meet you wherever you are.
Excellent. Yeah. Yep. So will those events be announced on your LinkedIn page as well?
They will. I will make sure that
Awesome.
everybody knows about them.
Awesome. Excellent. I appreciate that. Well, if anyone does want to reach out to Ben, definitely check him out on LinkedIn. Make sure to look for Ben Nelson, Wild Oak Capital. Find out more about the events that they're doing, the work that they're working on now. Ben, I really appreciate the time that you've shared with me and just to learn a little bit more about how logistics have led you to where you are today and the work that you're doing. I really do value the real estate investor space and the ability for someone like yourself to help others to achieve that financial and time freedom.
We're working on it, man. I really appreciate the platform. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, of course. All right, take care.
Take care.